In case you're wondering why there aren't any 8-tracks, Richard took all of them. Okay, so the next thing we talk about is holy orders. Holy orders is an interior call by God. It's a call from God. It's not a right or a career choice, and should never be viewed as a higher position. It's a position of service. We're called to serve. The outward sign of holy orders is the laying on of hands of the bishop. In the case of priests, bishops also anoint their hands with sacred chrism. You all will get to receive the sacred chrism on Holy Saturday, won't you? Those of you baptized, I think maybe twice, right? How awesome is that? So in the church, there are 3 levels of holy orders: bishops, priests, and deacons. Through the sacrament, Christ gives men the power and the grace to perform their sacred duties. The book of 2 Timothy tells us, "For this reason, I remind you, to stir into flame the gift of God that you have through the imposition of my hands." So we are going to discuss each of them, and we are going to do it, hopefully, fairly briefly. The first is bishop. For any of you who may not know this, they are direct successors of the 12 apostles. That blew me away when I first heard that. So when and if you ever get to meet Archbishop Emeritus Naumann or Archbishop McKnight, you are actually shaking hands with, you're actually meeting a direct successor of the apostles. That is so cool. Just like our popes trace their lineage to St. Peter, our bishops trace their roots all the way back to the original 12. And it's an unbroken chain of apostolic succession that can only be found in the Catholic Church. Bishops can confer all 7 sacraments, including holy orders. When a bishop's ordained, he's given a mitre. You guys ever seen the mitre, the pointed hat that the bishop wears? I thought, one of the things I love about our faith is there's so much symbolism. It's like, okay, well, why is the hat in that shape? Interestingly enough, it symbolizes the tongues of fire that came down upon the 12 apostles at Pentecost. How about that? That's why it's shaped the way it is. And if you've ever seen it, it's 2 pieces of a harder material, like I don't want to say cardboard, but so it's a front and a back. Those 2 pieces are to represent the Old and New Testament. That's the reason why that hat is constructed like it is and in the shape that it's in. He has a crozier. As a bishop, he receives a crozier. Looks like a shepherd's staff, right? It has a shepherd's hook on it. That's because he's the chief shepherd of the diocese. Another little interesting side point. So I'm very blessed that I get to do some emceeing. I've not done it for Archbishop McKnight, but I get to do it for Archbishop Naumann. I'll actually be with him tomorrow. When Archbishop carries his crozier, he carries the hook forward. If you ever see anyone else carrying it, because when he comes somewhere, we'll hand it off, or his MC will take it, and we hand it off to children that are called vimps. Anyway, if you ever notice when I carry that, it's very important. I carry the hook backwards to make sure that people don't make a mistake. I'm not him. Don't ever want to be. He wears a gold ring on his finger. And he wears it on the ring finger of his right hand, which interestingly enough, you go, no, wait a minute, marriage is one on the left hand. Well, customarily in Europe, which is kind of where ours came from, men wear their wedding band on the right hand. I didn't know that. But anyway, it is a sign of his marriage to his people, to the church. He also wears a pectoral cross, usually much larger than this, but it's worn down lower. It's meant to be worn close to his heart as a reminder to keep Christ always close to his heart. Each bishop is assigned to a specific geographic area and the parishes within that area. He's responsible for assigning priests to these parishes to carry out the work of ministry to the people. He's also responsible for all the decision making at the administrative level. And he depends on his priest and his staff to be prudent co-workers to carry out this vast responsibility. I don't know if you guys ever see in the Levin what his schedule looks like. Thank you. But yeah, guys, please pray for our bishops, pray for our priests. They're so vitally important. Next, we're going to talk about priests. In the Old Testament, priests like Melchizedek were messengers of the Lord, appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices for sins. It was a foreshadowing of the good thing to come, which was Jesus, the one high priest who offered his body and blood to the Father once for all the sins of the world. Jesus extended his awesome powers of the priesthood to those called to this role. They're chosen from those who intend to remain celibate for the sake of the kingdom. Their celibacy is a sign of their intention to imitate Christ's own celibacy and to serve God in the church's ministry with an undivided heart. And I love that. One of the reasons for celibacy is so that our priests can serve the church with an undivided heart. In some rare cases, there are married clergy. There is actually one over in Kansas City, Missouri. But these are men that come to Catholicism after being of another faith. Let's see here. Anyway, these are guys that were married in other faiths, and they come and they ask if they can be ordained priests to the church, and that happens, but it's rare. Priest like the bishop is no longer an ordinary man. He's a man who's been made in persona Christi, which means in the person of Christ, through the laying on of hands of the bishop. A priest's primary roles or functions are to offer Mass, administer the sacrament of reconciliation, anoint the sick, baptize, and marry. He also has administrative responsibilities to the parish he's been assigned to. Unlike the bishop, he cannot ordain, but he can confirm if the bishop grants him that power on special occasions. And so Father Scott will be given that power this coming Holy Saturday when he gets to ordain all of you. Excuse me, confirm. Yes. You're not all going to be priests. Welcome to Gail's world. And to finish up, the third branch is the role of holy orders, is the role of the deacon. It comes from the Greek word diakonia, which means servant. And I love that. I love it when I first found out. In the simplest terms, a deacon is merely a servant. I love it. Deacons are ordained by the bishop, not to the priesthood, but to the ministry of service. Through ordination, a deacon is conformed to Christ, who came to serve, not to be served. So we as deacons are conformed to Christ, the servant. As I told you, I was in the group of men that was ordained as deacons for the diocese in June of 2020. There are two types of deacons. Interestingly enough, there are transitional deacons and there are permanent deacons. So transitional deacons are seminarians who are on their way to being ordained as priests. So it's usually a 1-year period before their ordination to the priesthood. So if you ever by chance would happen to say to Father Scott or to Father Stoll, if you happen to just inadvertently call them deacon, you would actually be talking properly, because they are both permanent. They are both deacons. When they proclaim the gospel, as you guys know, the deacon typically proclaims the gospel in church. When a priest proclaims the gospel in church, he does it as a deacon. That's he's performing his diaconal character. Anyway, permanent deacons are most often married men, though not always. I think all of the ones in our diocese at this point are married. All have full-time jobs to support themselves and their families. So we are to give 15 hours or so, much more or so in a lot of cases, but at least 15 hours a week in service to the church, as directed by the parish priest that we're assigned to. Deacons also assist at Mass. We get to preach once in a while at the leisure of the priest. We teach. We witness and bless marriages, preside at funerals, baptize, and carry out works of charity. If deacons are married and their spouse should precede them in death, they agree not to remarry. So if Gail were to precede me in death, I would be asked by Mother Church to remain celibate for the rest of my life, so that we can serve the church with an undivided heart. Because of his ministry of the word, when a deacon is ordained, he's presented with a book of the Gospels. And I love the words that Archbishop says to us when we receive that. He says, receive the book of the Gospels, whose herald you have become. Believe what you read. Teach what you believe. And practice what you teach. Love that. It's interesting to note that the role of the ordained deacon, for the most part, faded out in the 500s. But the Second Vatican Council revived it because of the church's need for deacons. Well, guys, this concludes our talk for tonight. I hope you found it beneficial. It has been a privilege for both Gail and I to get to share with you. Are there any questions? Gail loves to answer questions. But any questions about holy orders or matrimony? Yes, ma'am.
It's not really a question, it's more of an explanation. In other states, they have bishops, but on Kansas, it's archbishop. So what's the difference on whether you're just a bishop or you're an archbishop?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think there are archbishops all across the country. So in Kansas, there are 4 regions. There's Northeast Kansas, Salina, Dodge, and Wichita. Thank you, Linus. So there are 4. The other three are bishops. Archbishop. This is the largest diocese, and so this is where the archbishop is. This is the archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas. This is where the archbishop is, and he doesn't really have any direct authority over those other dioceses, but he kind of oversees them in a manner. And I don't know a lot of the specifics about them, but he actually has some say anyway. It is a little bit of a difference, really not in ordination or anything, but because he is the archbishop, he is sort of over those other 3 dioceses in Kansas. Great question. And if you ever notice, our archbishop wears it's called a pallium, a piece of white cloth that goes front and back and around, and it has 3 crosses on it, on the collar. That's the sign that he's an archbishop. Yeah. It's made of, I don't know if any of you heard Father Stoll talking about it, it's made of lamb's wool. The lambs are slaughtered on the feast of St. Agnes. Because Agnes, it was very recently. Agnes, as in agnus in the Latin, means sheep. And so, they slaughtered the sheep, and that's where the palliums come from. Another piece of worthless information, but hey, and you got it. Anybody else? Okay, guys. Please know that Gail and I are praying for you. We are so excited for everyone. So grateful for all the sponsors. So excited for all of you coming into the church. Thank you.